So I think that we first have to acknowledge that when we created public education, we created it on a basis of racist ideals. And so I think that it's important to dismantle those racist ideals in the way in which they've played out over years. As we worked towards integrating schools, there was a lot of resistance that played itself out into systemic and institutional racism. And a lot of that comes through in what type of access we provide to students, specifically around the kinds of classes they can take, the kinds of opportunities they have, the chances that they have to explore beyond the building. And a lot of that has to go back to funding. Part of what I think makes our schools still separate and not equal is that we rely on property taxes to fund the vast majority of schools. And when you are dealing with communities that are in poverty, their property taxes are low, which means that they are less capable of funding their schools at an equal rate of their more affluent peers. And money allows schools to provide different and more advanced things so that kids can really explore college and career, technical paths, military paths that can make them prepared for that future. And oftentimes our folks in poverty don't have those opportunities. I think one of the major ways that we can increase equity is first listening to the communities in which we serve, right? So a lot of times school systems operate separate from the community and from the youth themselves in the decision-making process. And so I think one of the things that I have found to highlight inequity and then address it is talking to the very folks that you serve and figuring out how they feel about what's going on. So I think that that's step one. I think step two is starting to really confront some of these hard truths about what are our expectations of Black and brown children, and what does the way in which we've set up the system of education, what does that communicate to these students about what we expect of them. And I think that what we will find is that often the expectations for children of color is lower. Often the expectations for children who are in poverty is lower. And that's wrong. That's an unfair assumption that they can't do or won't do. And it's imperative that we as a nation confront this myth and confront the myth that their parents don't care. Confront the myth that that they are only capable of certain things. Confront the myth that college isn't for everybody, right? And I'm not saying that college is the only path to success. My belief is that educators and educational systems have to have all the doors open, right? And I just hand the kids the keys, and they can open whatever door they want. I cannot limit you by my own assumptions of your capability. I have to provide you with every opportunity, and then you get to choose. And I think that that is when we can really, truly accomplish equity. So the first thing that I would say is that you need to do your research and get involved and vote in your school board elections. School board, I contend, is one of the most important political bodies of any community, because they dictate what students, what quality education students are receiving at a very high level. They allot funding, in some places, they even dictate curriculum. So it's very imperative that you pay attention to who your school board representative is and you vote in those elections. So one thing that anybody can do is volunteer at their local school, particularly if they have children. And so I would encourage folks to get to know their child's teachers and their principal, and really start to reach out to them and say, how can I help you? How can I help you create a quality school? And for folks that don't have children, most of us are professionals and we have skill sets that are important for kids to learn about, and really help them expand what they know about the professional sector that they might enter someday and aspire to be one of the things that we are, right? And so you don't have to know a lot about public education. You don't even have to know a lot about kids. But if you know a lot about what you do and you have passions, you can share those with children that will inspire them and help them move forward in their education.